Hello and welcome. This is episode 12 of my to-do list, and this week is going to be short, sweet, and hopefully successful. To start off with, I'd like to follow up on what I've done 2 weeks ago, which was looking at my economy gauge, and we have found that one of the vacuum lines basically at the manifold was quite brittle and broke off while I was inspecting it. And that's where I had to end the video because I didn't have any tools to fix it, so I taped it up and just went with that. I was very impatient, so the next day I went to the store and got some silicone vacuum line to do some testing to figure out if that is actually the problem. And now, let me show you. As you've just observed, it's working again, so let me show you what I've done. First of all, how I figured out what exactly I need to replace, and then how I've replaced it. Last week we figured out that the grey cable is the one that connects straight to the economy gauge. And here 4 vacuum lines connect to one, and this is the vacuum line that eventually then goes to the manifold. That one 100% had a hole, so I've replaced it with this blue silicone vacuum line. What I've done, because I don't have an original vacuum line right now, I've taken the broken one out completely. And this is actually part of the broken one, but there's still parts in here that will perfectly work. So I've broken up smaller pieces, chunks like this, and I've used these as connectors. So I will plug that into my connector here, and then the vacuum line, so this blue one right here, I'll pull that off right now. There we go. So you can see that this actually works pretty well as a connector. And now I can plug that back in here. The first thing I did was to replace the vacuum line going from here to the manifold. And instead of just straight up feeding it through this small hole, I just had it lay on top just to do some testing. And interestingly, after replacing it, it didn't change anything, or at least not much. I could maybe see the gauge kind of moving a little more towards the center or closer to the left side where I wanted to be, but it kind of indicated that there was still a vacuum leak somewhere else. So I tried something else. And my investigation, of course, led me here. And what I started doing is I started to unplug one of them. I'd turn on the engine and see what happens if I put my finger on top and just shut off that line. And I did that for all of them in all sorts of combinations. And then at some point I would get the economy gauge to work fully, to go all the way where I wanted to be. So after playing around for quite a while, I identified that this vacuum line here, which also went under here and then over to the other side, that must have also been faulty. And lo and behold, I followed the vacuum line which led me here, and you can already see that I've replaced it. When I started pulling this, it just completely fell off. So obviously there was another vacuum leak. So I ended up simply replacing both of these, and you can see I've got my connector solution going here. So you can now see that I've got 1, 2, goes down here and then into the manifold there. And both of these now feed over there, and they have closed the system off. And that's all I've done really. I am currently looking for some more original vacuum line, which should be a 3.5 inner diameter. I think the only difference, I'm not 100% sure, but there's the 4mm inner diameter, which is for the central locking system, but all the other ones are 3.5mm. What I've bought now is 3mm, but because it's silicone based, it's a bit elastic, so I'd rather went for the smaller one than the larger one, just to make sure that it's not going to come loose at any point in time soon. One last thing before we move on to something else. If anyone knows a better way of feeding vacuum lines from this side to that side, please let me know. Is there any trick? Can I remove some of this and make it easier? I didn't want to. It was kind of working for me, but please let me know in the comments if there is an easier way to get vacuum lines from this side to that side. That would be really appreciated. The real thing to do this week is to have a look at my driver's side door lock, because it has been getting more and more difficult to actually open it. I have to really angle it. There we go, that worked. And then Yeah, it's safe to say that it's a bit stuck. Going through forums, going on YouTube, there were many different opinions on what should be done. PTFE spray was a popular option, some other sort of lubricant. People tend to say don't go for WD-40 or classic just water displacement lubricant. And then there's always graphite, which is what I'm going to go for. One specific guy on YouTube who seemed to have a lot of good knowledge base on door locks, especially car door locks, said not to use this, so I was kind of put off a bit, but I think I can't really do it much harm. If this doesn't do the trick, then I might try something else. This is going to be my first option. I've heard it makes quite a mess, so I'll try and be careful with it. And effectively, this is a powder, graphite powder, that I will carefully, like, I guess, press air into here, and then I will feed the key in and out and operate the lock mechanism and hope that there's going to be some improvement. So I've cut off the tip to kind of create a hole, and now okay, that's definitely blasted some in there. Oh yeah. It's working a lot smoother already. Okay, I'll give it a little bit more. You can probably see it kind of jumping out of the sides. All right, I don't want to do too much. I've read that doing too much is not good either. It already seems to be going a lot smoother. Look at that. Actually, one thing I will do right now is I will turn off the battery, because I can obviously hear my door locks going the entire time, and that's probably not a good idea. To be honest, this is working really well now in both directions. I can see that the lock is kind of moving in itself, so maybe the only thing I should really consider doing is opening up the door panel again at some point, and just maybe the whole thing is just moving a little bit, but it's a lot better now. I'm already happy, and I think that's all I'm going to do. The main reason to be wary of graphite is because of the outdoor conditions, and that's what this guy on YouTube also said. He wouldn't recommend it for outdoor locks because of the way it reacts with water. So potentially, if a lot of moisture would get into this lock, the water and the graphite powder would react, create some sort of layer effectively, and as soon as your lock changes in that way, obviously it will get stuck even worse. So hopefully that doesn't happen to me. Other sources have told me that with the other lubricants that you pour into there, that can happen over time, that because it's not a dry layer of graphite powder, whatever the lubricant it is, it could get stuck in some way. I have to say this has worked phenomenally. I'm mind blown really by how well this has worked for now, and I hope that in the long run it keeps working as well as this. All I've got left to do now is to just clean up around it, make sure there's no graphite anywhere else, and that's it. So, as I said, short and sweet and successful. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.